Hello, 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 beautiful people. Welcome back to an episode of the USL Show. It is great to be back. We are still in the middle of preview season, and we are now heading over to the Eastern Conference of the USL Championship. We are coming off of the news of Tormenta closing doors for this year, but we already talked about this week, and there's been some great articles that come out. So if you're looking for more information on that, check out Backheeled, check out Beyond the 90 with John Morrissey and Alex Ashton, and me and Alex did a podcast on Saturday. So those are already outlined for you if you're looking for that information. But speaking of the aforementioned man, John, how are you?
Yeah, doing well. I am deep in the throes of season preview mode, but I'm excited to be here.
Ryan, how about yourself?
Yeah, doing well. John, did you make it through the snow of New York City? All right.
The snow clearance folks here do an outrageously good job. Like, you could go outside today and not know that there were 20 inches on the ground yesterday. It's kind of remarkable.
My favorite thing was seeing whoever it was on Twitter being like, there's all this snow on the ground. It's like, can you believe this? And people want a European calendar, and somebody else was just like, this literally happened on the normal calendar. I don't know what you're talking about. That was just really funny to me. So before we get into this and we start, we want to go ahead and thank our newest patron, Sharon Anderson. Thank you so much, Sharon. If you want to be like Sharon Anderson, Matthew Schaaf, Doug Brooks, Stephen Howard, John's Landlord, Don Garber, David Horn, Josh, Dylan Reed, William Lamb, Sandy Lester, Ryan Smelter, Matt Capio, Andrew Tallesley, All the Hedgehog, Kunal Patel, MOS, and Fresh 30, Tim Knox, Rihanna Lacara, Jeremy Churchman, Noah Telford, Michael Fuchs, John Fuller, Christopher Cohn, Frank Anthony, and John Hunt. Then check out the Patreon. You get a special shout out at the beginning of each show. And right now we're working on some extra content for you guys. So hopefully we can make it even more worth it for you to be here. So let's get into these previews. We're going to go ahead and start with what we think the table is going to be. So we'll start off with what we believe. And going from top to bottom, we have Louisville City in first, Charleston second, Tampa Bay in third, Pittsburgh in fourth, the Detroit City in fifth, Rhode Island in sixth, Loudoun in seventh, Hartford in eighth, Legion are our first team out at ninth, Indy 11 and 10th, the Miami FC in 12th. You got Brooklyn, or sorry, in 11th, got Brooklyn in 12th, and you got the other new boys, Sporting Jacks, down there getting the wooden spoon. But how do we differ from the fans? Well, the fans, they think it's going to be Louisville in first, Charleston in second, Pittsburgh in third, Tampa Bay in fourth, Rhode Island in fifth, Detroit City in sixth, Hartford in seventh, Indy in eighth, Loudoun down in ninth, our first team out, Legion in 10th, Brooklyn in 11th, Sporting Jacks in 12th, and the Miami FC in last. So with all that said, let's go ahead and get into the preview. And let's start off with Louisville City FC. Listen, we know what they can be. You see the roster, you see who they are. But the storyline with Louisville, as the fans have them first, and so do we, can they make it matter in November?
Yeah, that is the driving question for Lou City season this year. You think about these past two campaigns where they have been dominant in the regular season, really romping into the Players' Shield. And they're teams that we will think about in a historic context as some of the best regular season teams of all time, but they've just not been able to get it done in the playoffs. I don't want to say that the next 6 or 7 months of soccer are meaningless for Louisville City, but it really does feel like they've got something bigger in mind once you get to that stage of the year.
Yeah, I mean, this is Louisville City. I mean, as the saying goes, there are four certainties in life: death, taxes, Tottenham losing on the weekend, and Louisville finishing first in the regular season of the Eastern Conference. They're going for their first three-peat in Eastern Conference history, at least winning the regular season, first place, number one seed. But for a team who prides themselves on being the best team in USL year after year, one of the best run league, or one of the best run clubs in the league year after year, not having a league title since 2018 is a very kind of, I know the playoffs are random, but like it does kind of speak to this team has to win something at this point in the season.
I mean, doing the supporter shield or the player shield 2 times in a row, it's unprecedented. Doing it thrice, I don't know if we have really the mental capability of kind of understanding that level of dominance. I mean, really, that level of dominance, are we talking Orlando City years ago? Maybe Lou City when they first came in? Even then, they weren't dominating the regular season that way. But the drop off from regular season to postseason after never missing the Eastern Conference Finals, it's been quite bizarre to see these last 2 years. John, do you think it has something to do with the way that teams go about Lou City, where they're going on the road, they're going into Lynn family, they're sitting back, absorbing pressure, and Lou City is having just to work a little extra hard to break it down? Or is there something else to it?
No, I think that really is the primary issue of 2 seasons in a row. Louisville has kind of ended with a bit of an offensive downturn. So then you're going against a parked bus. You're maybe not clicking on all gears in that regard. That's where it becomes difficult. And I think Louisville has really kept that in mind as they've approached the offseason. You think about Chris Donovan coming in. He's a target man like this club has never seen. Tolasha Unmi is good in transition in a way that's unique for Louisville. Akale and Quincy Huerman, they can dribble through a set defense, force you into rotation, and break down a low block in a way that a lot of wingers on this club simply haven't been able to. To me, those are all signings that hint towards a team that wants to be able to do exactly that come November.
And Louisville's opening the year in their first 7 games with 2 tough matchups. Obviously, Blue Grassico against Lexington to open the year, and then they have Charleston in April. But they also have Miami, Brooklyn, and Sporting Jags as part of this team. So they could be very well off to a fast start like they have been in years past as a team who lost just once in the regular season this past year.
I'm looking at this team, and one of my favorite comments we got on Reddit was we could have basically an all D lineup besides in back, like in goal. Like that is just something that can just happen, and I'm kind of rooting for it. But I'm looking up top, and you see Donovan, and you believe what they have there. How do you replace Philip Goodrum? Donovan's not a bad shout. Showameni comes. Another player who's come from Crawleytown back to the USL. I don't know why that keeps happening, but he's not a bad option to have. Serrano was up there in conversation of one of the players of the season to begin last year. He's been one of the better players to play in the league these last few years. Wilson has his own acclaim. Akale, I think, might be the most underrated move from this offseason. I think everybody just kind of forgot he came from New Mexico. And if you're an Eastern Conference person who didn't really watch the Western Conference, you don't know how much of a menace Akale is. They lost players and they retooled, and they're arguably better than how they ended last year.
And Akale has the receipts. He's somebody that can take over a playoff game and drag a team through when it matters the most. 10 goal contributions last year in a good United side. That's a difference maker. And that's a difference maker through the regular season, through November, in every moment that counts for this team. You also think about some of the internal improvement, right? Josh Jones in year 2, that's going to be a guy that's getting MLS attention at the end of the year. Everyone around Louisville is so excited about Brandon Days. I imagine he'll get some reserve center back minutes, maybe some right back in an emergency. Carlos Mogul's still there. Ray Serrano, who's not young anymore, I guess, but still improving. There are just a lot of guys where you think they're in for a big season with Lou City.
When we were looking through, or when I was looking through roster, Duncan was another one that kind of stuck out to me, where we saw Duncan go from being like just this crazy good midfielder in Memphis, and he kind of got lost in the mix for Louisville City last year. He wasn't one of the midfielders. I'm interested to see how they use him this year, if he's going to be that super sub or kind of rotation piece, because when he was on his game, he was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I think he played 4 games last season, and it was a carryover of the model from 2024, where he was doing the box-to-box Elijah Winder type of deal. and Taylor Davila was sitting a bit deeper off him, being that creator. And the dynamic changed when Kevin Lambert got into the squad and became this upfield target. The fact that you've got both of those as nailed down options and you know how to run those systems, that is going to be huge.
Frank has a really good question in chat on, would you consider the Brinks Cup and Players Shield double for Louisville a success if it doesn't come with a USL Cup championship?
I would say yes, but barring one piece of it, they cannot be a first round exit again with that. I think you have to, if you win the Players Shield, win the Brinks Cup, or make it to the final of the Brinks Cup, which I'm still going to call it the Jägermeister. You can't stop me. And they have to win at least one playoff game. I think those three things have to happen. It cannot be we make it to the final / win the Players Shield, and bounce first round again.
If they win the USL Cup and they win a playoff game, no matter what seed it is, i.e. they don't need to win the Players Shield, that's a successful season to me. A trophy is a trophy.
Yeah.
Do we have any final thoughts on Lou City?
They're really good.
They're really good. They're kind of up there with me of, I don't want to overhype them too much, but they might just end up being the best team in league history. And it's like not close, because still in my brain is still kind of San Antonio. That San Antonio squad is still kind of my top dog.
And that's still my highest ELO rating team of all time.
But this Lou City team may blow that team out of the water.
And by the way, friend of the show, Hugo Faru in goal. Shout out.
Oh, we didn't even talk about that. Like,
Yeah.
Imagine like they kind of lose previous goalkeeper on loan. They weren't able to get him back, and you just go and get one of the best ball playing goalkeepers. Oh yeah, he can stand on his head too if you need him to. They don't need him to because his backline's disgusting. But just on the off chance that they get into a shootout, they probably won't, but still. So, any final thoughts on Lou City? All right. Let's move over to the Charleston Battery. Hey, they had a lot of moves. There's been a whole lot of people go from the Battery. There's some names that you're used to seeing that are not going to be there in the Low Country next year. Will a new look attack force tactical change out of Ben Pierman?
I mean, the answer almost has to be yes when you lose Myers and Jennings and Aaron Malloy and Arturo Rodriguez. That's just a lot of definitional players that have ended up elsewhere in the world. So Charleston will need to be a little bit more moderate, right? And Malloy feels like especially the piece that defines that for them. He's somebody that you could rely on at every level in possession to be that tempo-setting passer. To me, you look at this squad, you look at even a Sean Suber coming in, some of the bigger additions at the striker spot. There's a world where Charleston wants to be a little bit more direct, play some more long balls, and be varied in a way that the more I think about it, the more it makes sense with the way that the rest of the league has gone tactically. So maybe they're different, but that doesn't mean they're bad.
Yeah, and ever since Ben Pierman arrived in the Low Country, Charleston has not finished in the Eastern Conference lower than third, which was his first season. That's back-to-back seasons where they've been the second best team in the conference behind Louisville, second best team in the league for the Players Shield race. Like, this is a very consistent side that if anyone's going to figure out this team tactically, Ben Pierman's going to get it done. And I'm actually circling October 10th. It's the third final game of the season for Charleston. They're playing Louisville, which could very well be going a long way towards determining who could be winning the Players Shield this year, who could be number one seed in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, I'm fascinated here because, I mean, it is an all new attack, right? I think that you're going to look at pieces out like a Cal Jennings, who's apparently just loving life in Japan. Good for him. You're looking at a Juan David Torres who's gone on loan with a massive buyout, or that's going to be coming there for the club. You lose other players along the way that I'm just kind of blanking on off the top of my head. Obviously, Aaron Malloy as well. But then you look at who they have, where they have Husu. They got Yakaza. I mean, people forget, but Husu might be like the best number 6 in the league. Like, he's remarkably good. They have Suber, who's come down. Great. They have Smith. Then you have Jeremy Kelly, who, again, Crawley Town back to the USL. Why does this keep happening? People forget how good he was. Miguel Berry was ridiculous with his short time with the Loyal. And over on the bench, you have him listed right now, John. Swan has been a superstar in the preseason, and everybody in Charleston camp cannot talk highly enough of this kid. Like, they're having, even though they play different positions, they're putting them in the same breath as Fidel Barajas, which cannot be understated in how good of a talent that is. They've retooled fully. Yes, they're going to miss those pieces, but you love what you got.
I do think there is a drop off from the 3 or 4 nailed on all league USL guys that they had, and some of the players who are very good, because there is a difference between those levels. And seeing Charleston a bit in the friendly that they played on Saturday, you can tell that, talent aside, there is a bit of a learning curve and rustiness to shake off. This team had certain patterns the last 2 years that are just going to need to be reforged. And that chemistry is going to come slowly, like it or not. Now, maybe that will happen in April, and Charleston has an up and down opening week or two, and then rushes through and does their thing. I ended up picking them 4th in the conference because I do think it's going to be gradual as they kind of get up to speed.
Yeah, and to have these first 4 games for Charleston, they're hosting defending champion Pittsburgh Riverhounds to start the year, then hosting Birmingham, and then they have 2 away days against Detroit and Louisville. So this very well could be a slow start to the season.
And it's not easy, but someone said last year, and I think it still reigns true this year as we've gotten really into the weeds of these previews. There is no bad team in the USL this year. There's a gap. There's undoubtedly a gap between the top and the bottom, but there is no bad team in the USL this year. And it's going to be a dogfight. And if this starts slow and somebody else besides Louisville gets hot, then you could be fighting for a 3-4 home playoff spot. But off talent alone, and frankly, trust in Ben Pierman and Ian Cameron, who makes way from South Georgia Tormenta after he steps down last year midway through the season and now is coming through. I have nothing but faith in this coaching staff to create another winning group.
Yep. Yeah, in Ben Pierman we trust is kind of always the calling card here.
Also, the picture they posted of Ben Pierman earlier made me shoot them way up. He has a dog. He has a cowboy hat. I love it.
Yeehaw season in Charleston. Let's go.
Any final thoughts on the Battery? I'm going to ask one question before we move on, which is, if it clicks right away, let's say they start off the season and it is clicking. Is there a world where they are right there neck and neck with Blue City this year?
See, for me, I see a Louisville team that is as good, if not better than they were. I see a Charleston team that I do think is a tick worse. So the answer is no. But hey, Ben Pierman do that thing, you know?
Fair enough. We didn't mention the goalkeeping situation here. They brought in Burner, which is interesting. Zamudio is back, and Kozmeka is also back. 3 safe keepers that I trust a lot, so can't hate it. Cannot hate it. All right, moving on. The Rowdies. Hey, we have them 3rd. The fans have them 4th. It's a new look squad. Last year we said, hey, maybe this Rowdies team is a little old. Maybe they don't quite have it in them. Well, Dom Casciato said we will not be old anymore. John, I'm sure you have an average age of this squad, but I'm willing to say it's fairly young and it's full of talent. Tampa Bay Rowdies, how long does it take it to gel with this brand new squad?
Yeah, I mean, the age component is certainly there for this Rowdies team. You can't get away from the fact that there are a lot of young guys on the roster. By my reckoning, I think the average age is roughly 26, but that is weighed up by the fact that like Dion Akoff is there, Lewis Hilton is veteran. If you look at the median, which I don't have on hand, I bet it is a lot lower. And it is the concept of blending borderline League One All-Stars with a lot of star players that are used to taking a lot of touches at the championship level. That just takes time to come together. Moreover, the defense is completely reformed. Yes, you've kind of got a cheat code to chemistry if you go with Dos Santos and Leland Archer because they played together in Charleston, but you still have to reckon with their relationship to the midfield, how they communicate with whoever starts in goal. The fact that Dom Casciato is probably going to experiment a little bit with his lineups just because the Rowdies are so deep. I think Casciato comes into this season with a very clear tactical system. It's been a 4-4-2 throughout the preseason. They're going to dominate through the channels. They're going to press you hard. But the personnel and the relationships between them are probably a work in progress.
Yeah, I think Cassiato is the kind of leading storyline here. He came to Tampa Bay last season from Omaha. I know joining in at midseason is never an ideal situation. They made the best of what they could. They still averaged 1.5 per games that he was there in charge. And they even ended the season with just 2 defeats in their final 10 games, which isn't nothing. But I think having a full preseason, having Cassiato being able to really stamp his mark on this Rowdies team to really overhaul the roster, or we're seeing the Tampa Bay Rowdies team that we're all pretty much used to of being competitive for home playoff games in the Eastern Conference. And I do think this Rowdies team will be much improved upon what we saw from last season. And the fans clearly agree with us as well that they should be among here. And I'll even go as bold as to say, and it's probably a low bar to cross, but I think they don't lose to either Miami or Jacksonville this season.
And they won the, oh my gosh, I'm going to mess it up, the Cup last night. It starts with a C. Help me out.
I think it's Coco, but I don't know if
Coco?
it's like a soft CH.
Sir. But yeah, won the Cup last night. They already checked off a little bit of silverware. Let's go to that GK, that goalkeeping situation where Frank has in chat. GK situation has been slightly concerned. I can't tell. Jamali Waite was bad last year. Els Paso's defense was awful, or both. In which I'd say I think Jamali Waite was doing what he could. Every single game he would make like this save that was always on save of the week, and it definitely gave Chris Ball hits huge 3 to cut lead by to 42. It gave that same vibe every time. It's like Jamali Waite makes a huge save to keep El Paso in this thing. They lose 4-3. Like it was kind of that same vibe every single time. But I do ask the question here. Would you rather have Austin Pack starting?
Oh. For me, the answer is yes. And I think that comes on 2 fronts. One, Jamali Waite is fresh off a season where he allowed 7 goals above his XG, which was the second worst mark of any goalie in the league. That, if you aren't a number person, is code for he was really bad. He's also somebody that's just gone a lot with Jamaica. And I think it's going to be valuable to have a consistent presence in this back or behind this back line, setting the tone as the Rowdies try to build up that chemistry that I just mentioned. We know that Austin Pack has been USL Championship ready for the better part of 3-4 years at this point. He is good enough for this level. He can be one of the better goalkeepers in the league, frankly. That would be my call. We'll see how it actually goes down at Al Lang.
So I'm also looking, when I'm looking through here, and it's hard not to just love the roster. MD Myers, you got Dolabella up top, Conway behind. Enderlong, if you didn't watch Carson Enderlong last year with Naples, you missed out. Cicerone, Perez, Micheletto back there, Schneider, Mendez, Lawrence Wyke, Lewis Hilton. I mean, they got Hilton on the bench, which feels blasphemous almost. Dos Santos to Archer to Learman, Cruz, Akoff, Nigro, Ostrom. What? I mean, this is an unbelievable squad where I am once again going to ask the same question about Charleston. If it clicks immediately, are they competing with Lou City?
This one, I think the answer is probably yes. My issue with Charleston is who's the guy that takes over a game. Maybe it's Jeremy Kelly. Maybe it's Miguel Berry. I don't feel confident about either of those things. Tampa Bay has like 5 guys where, it's like Pedro Dolabella went off and had a brace, and he called a game. Like, yeah, that's what Dolabella does. Ditto for Myers. I think Henderlong could be that guy. Schneider has that level through the midfield if he comes through. It just feels like Tampa Bay is kind of the Hydra of this league. So many heads, you can't address what they're bringing to the table.
And what's going to be really exciting if we're going to have this comparison to both Charleston and Louisville is the first 2 weeks of June. So on May 30th, we have Tampa Bay playing Louisville, and then their very next match on June 10th, they're going to be hosting the Charleston Battery. So to have that kind of just back-to-back matchup is going to be incredibly interesting. And that would be the second time they'll have played the Battery in the season and the first meeting they'll have against Louisville.
What other thoughts do we have on the Rowdies?
Are we concerned about Sebastian Cruz and Dion Akoff? Because I really like Cruz, but I also just need to pick a spot to criticize because there doesn't seem to be one.
I think it's a clear weak link. I think and I know this didn't really happen under Casciato, but I think there's a world where you can get rid of that problem by putting in a third center back, having Ostrom or Nigro be like a wing back, and maybe putting Perez as a wing back type, or Micheletto can kind of do that, but still Perez as that kind of right mid, right wing back type. Let him be the more advanced of the two sides. And I think you've already solved that problem if you're willing to go that route.
And I almost think that's the best way to maximize the talent here, but nevertheless, Rowdy's gonna rowdy. I don't think there's a bad answer.
Any other thoughts on this team? All right. Your defending champs, John, you and I got to see it live in person, and it was fun. It was awesome. They have revamped the squad a little bit, but it's some faces that you know and love. But it's officially Rob Vincent season, in which we're just going to ask the question, how much does Vincent rock the boat in terms of the Riverhounds identity?
Yeah, and I mean, you and I saw it in person. The way that he really took Pittsburgh from a team that was very defensive, very aggressive, trying to get the ball into the attacking zone as quickly as possible. And those were still the broad principles that Pittsburgh played with, but they added a little bit more flexibility through the midfield, and especially with Danny Griffin's positioning. The wingbacks were allowed to push higher. There was a little bit of refinement and patience in the final third. And now he's not doing it as an interim manager, and he's got a title under his belt. Like, he's got a blank check to go in and reform what he wants Pittsburgh to be. Now, I think when you look at what the roster is, it's still going to be a 3-4-3. It's going to defend in a low block 5-4-1. But there are possibilities here. Maybe Elliot Goldthorpe is a very aggressive wing back off the bench. Maybe you play with two strikers because you've got Albert Dikwa and Trevor Amen. There is a sense of new possibility under Rob Vincent that just wasn't there in the past.
And I had mentioned this back in our 90-50-10 predictions that I don't think the Pittsburgh Riverhounds will be repeating as champions. In fact, we haven't had a repeat champion since Louisville did it in 2017-18. We haven't had a repeat champion of the Eastern Conference playoffs since Tampa Bay did it in 2020 and 2021. So there is a lot of history going up against them. But this should still be a Pittsburgh team who is in competition for a home playoff game. And it's very crucial that they do that. They had 7 defeats away from home last season, and they opened the year with 5 of their first 6 games away from Highmark Stadium as well. But this is still a very good Pittsburgh team, in my opinion, that should be getting a home playoff game if things just line up for them correctly.
I think there's a couple of storylines besides how does the formula change under Vincent that I'm really following. And I want to start off with Albert Dikwa returns, in which I think that people are going to remember Rhode Island Dikwa a little bit, where he wasn't quite getting that that supports from the midfield behind him. And it was working really well when it was Dequa and JJ Williams. They were just kind of playing off each other. Dequa wasn't getting the goals, but much like we talked about with Augie Williams, who was just in Pittsburgh last year, those off the ball runs to pull defenders and make space for other strikers was the magic of Dequa. He doesn't get assists. He's kind of a Carmelo Anthony type of bags goals, no assist. But what he does off the ball is no joke. I think it's going to be interesting to see how Robbie Mertz, how a Goldrup, how a Sample, how a Griffin, how a Charles All can support Dequa, and maybe he can get back to that Golden Boot winner version of himself.
Yeah, I wrote about this at some point that his shot quality like went down the toilet when he moved to Rhode Island. Some of that was just the change in system, the fact that he needed to learn new patterns and really wasn't that successful doing it. But I think, and we're seeing a bit in the comments, Dequa did have a one-off year where he was god level, and he's kind of never been that guy otherwise. Can you expect 10 goals from him? I think that's reasonable, and that's all they got from Augie Williams last time around. So I'm not necessarily concerned, but to expect him to get back to the Golden Boot caliber, I don't know if I see that.
I also want to bring attention to the back line. You know, the one thing that we always said with Bob Lilly, which was it's going to work somehow. We just choose, like we every year we say, surely it can't work this time, but it always does. Rob Vincent was under Lilly for a long time, both as a player and as an assistant coach. But even this feels like a step back for the most part. Can Vincent bring in those same ideas that Lilly did? Because we noticed after Vincent took over, they actually got better defensively, but that I was still taking in Lilly pieces and making them better. Can Vincent do it with his own guys this time?
I'm a big fan of the defensive rebuild, I will say. Like, people are going to watch Victor Souza and realize this is a classic. Pittsburgh finds a dude who's a little bit underrated and turns him into an maybe not all league, but one of the better defenders you're going to find in the Eastern Conference. Some of the college recruits are really strong as well. He's not listed on the graphic because he just signed today, but Lassie Kelp coming in from Maryland. American Soccer Analysis had him as the number 2 CB in this draft class. Like, he's got real pedigree and he should be an MLS player. He'll be in line for minutes. I'm worried about the pivot more than anything else. I like Sample and Walty a lot, but 1 or 2 injuries and suddenly you're in a really bad position. And I don't know if I trust Nico Campuzano. He was good for about 3 months and then terrible for the rest of the season. Maybe he gets back to that form. Like, he went to the University of Pittsburgh. He knows this area. That could be comforting for him. But going from Eric Dick to something uncertain, that's the biggest drop-off of all.
I'm going to push a little bit on the Dick point, which is during the regular season, he was not playoff Eric Dick. He was good, but he turned superhuman in the playoffs, where if you go back and watch regular season, he was good, but not special. And I think that we're remembering the playoff run because he was just absolutely extraordinary. But that time he had in the regular season, it was just slightly above average. And if you get that same regular season performance out of Nico Campuzano, I think you're pretty happy.
I think that's fair. I think Campuzano lacks some of the box control kind of things that Eric Dick hangs his hat on. Like, even if Dick isn't overperforming as a shot stopper, he still saved 72% of shots he faced last year, and he's got that little bit of intangible to his game.
And 11 of Pittsburgh's 12 clean sheets last year was from Eric Dick.
The box control is a big one, and we saw that massively on display against Rhode Island. I feel like, especially Rhode Island, it just felt like he was just catching everything, that they were putting everything in the box for the last 15 minutes. It was ridiculous. So, any final Pittsburgh thoughts? I know they have people coming in at the wingback positions. There's definitely going to be people announced, but like it looks awful thin. Let's hope no one gets hurt. So let's move on. Detroit City FC. If you watched our 90s, 50s, 10s, you know that I am very high on Detroit City. I can get into that in a minute. But John, you brought up this question. I'm pretty sure it was you anyway. And I think it sums up Detroit City well. Can they score without being scored on?
Yeah, Detroit, ever since they've joined the USL, has been a team that hangs their hat on the defense. That's the whole MO of what this organization wants to be. They have made changes this offseason that point in a different direction, whether it's paying a fee for both Ates Diouf and Maxi Rodriguez. It's adding a lot of talent in the midfield that's probably a little bit more oriented towards attacking. The wingbacks and fullbacks are really aggressive. That's going to get away from the classic Detroit identity. Like if they want to come out and get into shootouts, you're giving up something important. I'm not saying it's not going to work, but it feels like a real culture change.
Yeah, and this was a team who had both teams to score in 12 of their regular season games from last year. If you look back through the games that they won, only one of those games was they scored one goal and kept a clean sheet. And that one, all the other ones, they had multiple goals scored in this one. And this was a team who did make it into the playoffs at the end of the season just by 2 points. So we still think this is a decent Detroit team that should be a playoff side.
I'm really high on what Detroit City does. In our 90s, 60s, or 90s, 50s, 10s, I said there's potential that they host the USL final this year. I'm high on this roster. I think that I'm looking around what this team has, and this does not include Preston Tabor Tataka, which got signed yesterday. This was made before that. But even so, you look around what they have here. They have Stanley, they have Silva, they have Amumin, so they have Bryant, they got Hope Boone, they got Yamazaki, they got Reese Williams, they got Ryan Williams, Diallo, Smith, Morris, Juve. I mean, like, you love everything you see here. Guys like Diop and Rutz are now backups because they got Kobe Hernandez Foster and Maxi Rodriguez back. For me, I am saying if Maxi Rodriguez can even be half of what he was in 2024 with Pittsburgh, and Kobe Hernandez Foster is who he is, and Ryan Williams is who he is, who's stopping this midfield?
Who is that midfield stopping is probably my question. Because I don't know about Maxi's defensive heft as he continues to get older. And frankly, I think they're going to play him as a number 10, which I don't love because I think he's better served in a deeper spot. I understand that's probably an unorthodox opinion. Last season, the real discovery with Hernandez Foster is that he's a dog if you just let him push forward and do more things on the ball. I want that to continue to be the case, but then it puts a real onus on Ryan Williams as the only true number 6 on this squad. That is the one spot of imbalance. And it makes me wish they were continuing with the back 3, which they've not used throughout this preseason. That is my little bit of confusion here for a team that I think has real upside to maybe get a home playoff game.
And what's interesting is kind of, I guess, a weird scheduling quirk is they do end the season with back-to-back games on the road at Tampa Bay and Louisville. And then in the middle of August, they have Tampa Bay and Louisville back-to-back as well, which is just kind of odd scheduling from USL. But like, if they're going into these final 2 games of the season with a chance for a home playoff game and they're having to go through 2 teams we predict will be hosting home playoff games, that's going to be a really intriguing situation.
John, now you have me thinking about a back 3. Who do you drop in favor of? Because if you're going to get rid of somebody, I'm assuming in my brain it'd probably be Juve. But at that point, you have a right mid, no left mid. So are you going to go 2 strikers up top and just have a 3-2.
I'm probably getting rid of Ryan Williams and I'm sticking Maxi deep. I'm sticking Kobe Hernandez Foster, and I'm telling them you're defending low without the ball. You're taking turns, pushing ahead if you want to in possession. Plus, you've got enough athleticism. I think I'm huge on Callum Montgomery coming in from the Canadian Premiership. Hence why I lean that way with a back three. He feels like somebody who can not transformational, but really take a step forward with Detroit. We'll see what his role ends up being. I suspect we'll see multiple shapes for this team as the year goes on. But yeah, it's just a little bit of discomfort with the balance through the spine right now.
So I guess what are some other thoughts that we have on this Detroit City team? Because I mean, I could talk all day long about how much I really love what this squad has. I love the addition of Preston Tabor-Taka. Obviously, I've seen him in Birmingham for the last few years, but he is the perfect super sub coming in the 75th minute. He's faster than lightning, technical, can put in a decent cross if needed. His finishing is not quite what you want it to be, but if you're looking for someone just to cause chaos against tired legs, that's fantastic, especially if Detroit City is in a playoff game looking for a late goal. He's a wonderful person to bring on either in extra time or right before it starts.
Well, and my whole thing is Ates Diouf is that for 90 minutes. That guy is so fun to watch. He's so explosive. And the fact that he's just here, he's permanently a member of Detroit City. He comes with a little bit of chemistry with Darren Smith. Then you throw Alex DeLu on the other wing. That's a balance across the forward line. I don't know if anybody is a particularly consistent goal scorer, but that's a lot of electricity, a lot of big moments out of that threesome.
When looking at the back line, Saldana, or back line goalkeeper, Saldana, he's been interesting for me because I think he has this unfortunate part of following Steinwasser, and I think he's still kind of lives in my brain a little bit of like he's not quite as safe of hands as Nate Steinwasser was. But in a vacuum, I think almost every single team in the league is happy to have Saldana. So maybe that's just me comparing him to his predecessor, and that's not fair. Or maybe he might be one of the weaker links on the team. I'm not sure. How do you guys feel about that?
We had a comment earlier, and I think it was John Fuller saying, is there a team in the league that doesn't have an elite goalie? I would put to Detroit and think, yeah, those are two replacement level goalkeepers in my mind, like guys that can do a job but probably aren't elevating you. I don't think it's going to be crippling for this team, but you could do better in the vein of a Steinwasser.
How about some final thoughts on Detroit City FC?
Do we trust Darren Smith? Like he started, I want to say 9 goals in 10 at the beginning of last year or something crazy like that, and then very little afterwards. And if we don't trust him, is Ben Morris going to do the thing finally?
I don't fully trust Darren Smith for a full 34. However, I think that they have enough pieces. Ryan, I'm going to go ahead and steal your line. I think they have enough pieces in the aggregate to make up for it right now. When you're looking at a Hernandez Foster, at a Rodriguez, at a Juve, at a Diallo, I think you have enough pieces there to make up from not having your number 9 bag all the goals. I think Morris is a nice change of pace, but if I'm remembering correctly from last year, Morris was kind of that guy playing the 10, not really being a number 9. So maybe if you have him as the striker that can kind of hold up play and play Darren Smith through, if you're playing a 2-striker setup, maybe that can unlock Darren Smith a little bit more, but by himself, not really.
Yeah, and I'm going to mess up the name again. I think it's Chisholm Megbucholam or something like that, the third guy they've got in. I know nothing about him. He looks interesting at a minimum. We'll see what the upside is there. But between him and Preston and everything, there are enough lottery tickets that something's got to come good, I feel like.
So what else we got? Anything? All right. Rhode Island. Hey, Rhode Island FC, they started hot in 2025. Well, kind of. They kept drawing their way through games, and then they made the playoffs and went to the finals on a magical run. And then it felt like everything had a little bit of a giddy up, like the just a little bit of a hitch. Just what wasn't quite getting going for Rhode Island. Will they finally get production from the 10? Are they going to be able to get someone to score from zone 14, or is this just going to be another black hole this year?
I like how they have moved in the offseason. It is getting rid of Dikwa, getting rid of Maxi, guys who are great players on their day and in the right system, but just felt like they were bogging this attack down, not moving enough without the ball, being slow when they did get touches. Then you get in Dwayne Atkinson with the full season. You've got Leo Alfonso making runs off of JJ Williams. I've come around hard for Amo Shapiro-Thompson. I don't actually know if he's going to be like a constant starter for this team. Time will tell. He's a great glue guy. But the sheer amount of options and speed they've got up front is a real change year over year. To me, that feels like kind of what I was saying with Detroit. Like something is going to stick here. You know JJ Williams is good. Fuson has the upside. And then it's a lot of guys who you can make an argument for.
Yeah, like the whiplash that Rhode Island fans probably had to experience from their just goal production from the first season that they were in the league. They were the third highest scoring team in the Eastern Conference, to then their next season or their season last year to just drop down to just 29 goals scored on the season. Like that was the same number of goals that Miami scored on the year. Had to be just a completely tonal difference from what you saw from 2024 to 2025. However, that defense was still very good. They only allowed 29 goals on the season, which is incredible across the entire year. So it will be interesting to see what this Rhode Island team looks like entering this year. This was a team who, in 2/3 of their regular season games last season, experienced a game under 2.5 total goals for the year or for the game.
Listen, I'm sure Coach Connor Smith could tell me a reason, and I would end up agreeing with him because he's a lot smarter than I am. But please never play Clay Holstad at right wing back ever again. Let him start in the midfield and let him cook. That's kind of where I am.
Yeah, you're preaching to the choir. And the idea of Clay Holstad playing next to Hugo Bacharach, that is a lot of ball carriage and physicality and ability to step up and be that water carrier. That as a tandem is so clear to me that I really love it. And then if you need the change of pace, you've got Zach Haribo coming in. Like that rules is if that's your backup midfielder. And knowing Kano, he might just start because Haribo is that guy. But man, that's a strong central midfield group.
What I'm really kind of looking at here, Ryan, you outlined the excellence that was Rhode Island's back line. I don't think that can be understated. They quietly went about their business last year, kind of because they kept drawing matches and not winning them, but they were moving well all last year. That back three plus Koke Vegas was really, really good. Plus, you have a Bacharach, you have a Zach Haribo that are more defensive-minded players anyway. Of those like kind of midfield, they can get forward, but they are solid defensively. Do you think that's going to be enough to let the forward line get forward? Because we talked about with Detroit City, can they score without conceding? I feel like this back line can do it and allow the rest of the line to move forward and get into those final third chances and not just leave JJ Williams on an island.
I think I have the number right that they gave up 29 goals in 30 regular season games last year. This defense is next level. And I think what recommends it in that sense of you can just let the rest of the team do their business is it's so athletic. I'm imagining it's Hamidi Diop, Griffio, and Frank Nodarse. Grant Stoneman will have his say. But assuming that starting back three, all of those guys are either going to bully you off the ball or have an ability to cover space that really gives you a safety net at the back.
And 8 of their 10 wins last season were win-to-nil results. So this team was very effective at just grinding out games there. I mean, they had one game at the end of last season, their 5-0 victory over Tampa Bay, which was a very good portion of the number of goals they scored across the entire regular season from that one game. But if we're going to circle one match that should be on everyone's radar, is to end off the regular season this year. They're traveling away to Hartford, another team that is still upcoming in our rankings. But Kaylor, you had even mentioned it on Reddit that this number 6 spot through this number 10 spot, these were all very close within the voting from the fans.
Yeah, so let me go ahead, and I should have done this at the very top, but with the fans' votes, and I have the numbers somewhere, but the difference between 6 and 10 was the difference of less than a point. So separating those, was that 4-5 teams?
Mhm.
Like it was less than 1 point of a difference. So the fans have all those teams jumbled up, which I feel like is pretty spot on. Ryan, you had it for me, 0.94 points from the fans separated 6 through 10. So this is where we're starting into a slog of people that are like, well, actually, I think Rhode Island misses the playoffs. And somebody else is like, well, I thought I had Rhode Island as 4. It's that close. Any final Rhode Island thoughts?
Yeah, we're getting some pushback on Nodarse here. I need that guy to end up at a club where he is playing 3,000 minutes a year. Like, that guy needs to be on the pitch 24/7. I love Frank Nodarse.
I do too. To the point, okay, I know he's not a left footer, but would you put Nodarse over Jop if you're starting Stoneman?
Well, I'm going to go against myself because I do like Jop a little bit more.
Okay.
But, I mean, in the best case scenario, you've got room for the whole bunch.
Yeah, fair enough. Any final thoughts with Rhode Island? All right. Loudoun United. Hey, the fans think they're missing the playoffs. We do not. These are the people's champions, and we are the people. The storyline here was moving on from Ryan Martin the right call. And is this team kind of too talented to completely fail and fall out of the playoffs?
So I'm going to answer here in 2 modes. No, moving on from Ryan Martin wasn't the right call. Like, you don't just give up that manager when you've got him. At the same time, if you just accept the premise that Ryan Martin is gone, Loudoun has done really well to rebuild this roster and rebuild the coaching staff, if we're honest. You think about Marcina coming in as the sporting director. You think about Anthony Limbrick as the manager. This is a team that is kind of built to be Marcina-esque, but a little bit more moderate. They've got the physicality defensively. We know Abacora can be a useful player in a pressing system. Akinyode, Young, Murphy through the midfield are all ball winners. So if they want to play over the top and then let Abacora just be the Jorge Hernandez that is killing it in space, doing everything he can after winning those second balls, you start to see why Loudoun is really attractive in my mind.
Yeah, and this is a Loudoun team who made the playoffs for the first time in club history last season, that it almost felt like the kind of just pinnacle of what this team had, quote unquote, been building towards for their entire existence. Anthony Limbrick comes in, having managed in England, having managed in Wales, having managed in Gibraltar, like a proper football manager, journeyman level career of all places. But it's a really just interesting just kind of build that Loudoun has entering this season. And like, honestly, if we're going to have to invoke, I guess what Phil has always mentioned here, like, lads, like, wouldn't it just be the most Loudoun thing ever if after moving on from Ryan Martin, something that we've at least have discussed as being the wrong thing, like if they just continue to keep moving along and that they've built this team into a consistent playoff side, they do get a meeting with Ryan Martin on May 2nd as Oakland will be visiting Loudoun as well. And honestly, I think they actually might win that one just because, like, it's Loudoun.
By the way, I'm just going to insert myself in here. I'm going to a Loudoun game this year. I'm planting my flag. That's happening.
Okay. I mean, I respect that. Can you hit an Amtrak from New York to Loudon?
Yes, and I've got family in the DC area. So like
Oh,
the
I
world
love
is
this for you.
conspiring to make this happen. Yeah.
I love that this is happening. Someone from Loudon, please, like host John. I'm so when I'm looking at this team, you're missing a lot of the players that made this team special last year, and it's hard for me to not overlook that. I like what I'm seeing with Ezra Armstrong, Awua, you love, and you get O'Connor, you get Aiden. I got that right. Young, Bolu Akinyode, Murphy, Abukora, Ordonez, Peniodu. You like what you see, but we mentioned him with Lou City. Hugo Faru not being in net, I think is going to be a bigger deal than I think a lot of people are ready for.
They are betting big on one, Adam Beaudry, who's got U.S. national team talent, kind of being the Damian Loss, right? Like Colorado, in the Rapid sense, thinks that he is eventually going to be their starter. They want him to get game reps. I've got the time of day for Ethan Vandre coming off the bench there as well. He was fine in Tampa in a kind of mediocre situation last year. If that's your backup, that's fine. But overall, yes, that is a step down. So much of this team's success is going to depend on a really next pro coded back line coming together. I like Mazzafero a lot. He was awesome on those Austin teams where Dennis Sanchez was on the staff. Adnan was impressive with, I think, FC Cincinnati too. Mm-hmm. Worst case scenario, like healthy Jacob Erlandson, you slide Akinyode down. That should be enough to be competent, but that really feels like the litmus test given how much I trust this offense.
And Loudon had begun last season in a very fast start as well. If you're looking at their first 9 games, they only lost 2 of them. In fact, 3 last season. Loudon had a longer win streak in the regular season than both teams who participated in last season's Cup final. And that win streak at 4, included beating Pittsburgh in that one as well. So if this team can replicate that early success, like we talked about, if Tampa Bay can get started really quickly. If Loudon can do that as well, like we could be looking at a team that exists the entire season within the playoff picture.
If I could figure out a way to do Lads Protocol merch, I would be so in on that. If we can figure that out. John, you're a smarter person than I am when it comes to tactic stuff, because I have been fighting this ever since I really started diving in deep on this last week. Mm-hmm. How in the world do you get Awua, Ezra Armstrong, Abukora all on the same pitch together?
I have played this same game, and I think the answer is just Ezra Armstrong is on the bench. And I think that's crazy. Like, we're both in the same camp with that. But then you project forward, Open Cup, USL Cup, maybe an injury or two. I think he could play the wing if you need him. It's possible that he's still going to end up getting a fair amount of minutes. Is it probably a waste of resources to go and get the all USL left wing back from 2024 when you've already got Kwame Awua? Probably. Like, you could have done with more depth at center back or center mid. But hey, I mean, if Ezra Armstrong is happy to go do it, more power to him.
And I want to take a question from chat. Will Loudon winning the USL Cup be less, more, the same as when Hartford won? I'm guessing kind of as more.
Yeah.
Okay, why so?
Because it's Loudon. What do you mean?
Yeah, fair enough. All right.
Maybe the 3rd trophy Limerick would have won in his career as well. He won the Welsh Premier League and the Welsh Cup as well.
No trophies in Gibraltar for him? That is sad.
Manchester 62 is no Lincoln Red Imps.
That was quite the sentence. If you're not someone who is in the Gibraltar kind of space, or if you just watch way too much Football Manager stuff, that just sounds like an insane statement.
They stream Gibraltar matches on YouTube, and it's just kind of a guilty pleasure of mine just to kind of load in and see them just playing the games right outside the one airport of the island that has a smaller population than what my college football stadium seated at ECU.
Unbelievable. Any final Loudon thoughts? All right. For us, the final team in, Hartford Athletic. We did realize that we had Jimenez over on the right-hand side. That was a mistake. So if you're looking at this saying we still have him, no, we're sorry. Sorry about that. Can Hartford begin the way that they finished?
I mean, my gut instinct is just to say the word no and be silent. It's the real challenge for Hartford is you've lost Joey Farrell, who was the organizing force for that defense. Mamadou Jiang ain't walking through that door, and the offense tapered off without him. Kyle Edwards was sold to Sacramento. I like Augie Williams, but he's coming off his worst goal-scoring year since the pandemic season. That's just a lot of headwinds against Hartford Athletic. Now, is there upside? I definitely think so. They have gone really far afield with the recruitment. Like Barry Coffey dropped, I want to say 26 goals in the Irish second division last season. They've got guys from Panama and Cyprus and all over the place. I don't know how they're going to fare in the USL. That can be a difficult adjustment to make. I also think Brendan Merck might just get back to the back four. That's always been his preferred system. They've not really added depth at center back. Hartford from afar just feels like a little bit of a mystery to me. So yeah, would it be great if they get back to the USL Cup form? Of course. I don't know if it'll happen.
Yeah, this was, I know the Jägermeister Cup that they had won last season was pretty much like the crowning achievement for this club. Up until now, that was their first appearance in a cup final, was their first appearance in the playoffs in club history. But they began last year with just one victory in their first 11 games played, which is just really insane form that they really had to overcome. And halfway through the year to kind of really get things going, and perhaps having that Jägermeister Cup run really help propel them forward. But this definitely seems like a team that is going to be really borderline playoffs through the year. And if you're looking at their schedule already, like I have already circled like May 9th through July 4th as just a real concern, because you have Detroit, Tulsa, New Mexico, Tampa Bay, Pittsburgh, and Louisville all in a row.
Yeah.
And those are all teams that we think are going to be just very good compared to this Hartford side.
Ew. That's how many matches? 5 matches?
6 actually.
6 matches. If you walk away from that with 3 points, that's a successful time period. Like,
That's fair.
if you can scrape 1 win or 3 draws, like, good for you, honestly. And I would say that to any team, not just Hartford. With Hartford, you still like what you're seeing with the players that they've retained. I think up top is where you see your biggest loss, but it's still Augie Williams up there, right? And Augie wasn't Augie in Pittsburgh, but even as a bad season for Augie Williams standard, he was double-digit goals. You take that every day of the week if you're Hartford. I think I say this about a lot of players, so maybe I need to stop using this phrase. But Anderson at right wing back might be one of the most underrated players that this league has to offer. I think he's absolutely phenomenal. And when you pair that with on the left side, on the wing itself, Mitch Galena is still that guy. And so the wings are going to be ever present. And if they're crossing balls into Augie, you trust that to result in goals. At the very least, it's going to create chances. There's still a formula here for Hartford to win and be successful, but the players they lost, does that outweigh their potential here? Probably.
It's like a margin of error thing where we can definitely see the scenario where Hartford is very dynamic. They have the goals, but there's just a lot of ways where it can go wrong for them. And they've lost the depth that really paid off when they got into that crowded stretch last fall. There will be players for this team that surprise us. Like I don't know anything about Christos Hadjipascalis. Sorry to say it. Maybe he's awesome. Brendan Merck is a smarter soccer coach than I will ever be. But I don't know. Something is just off about the vibe.
I'm glad you mentioned him because I've been wanting to, and I got to be honest, that main letter scared me. I'm okay. Hadjipascalis.
I think you added something in the middle there.
I'm not even going to try to retry it. And you know who I'm talking about. If his parents are listening, I apologize. I'm from Alabama. That's my apology. Anyway, I decided to kind of just look some film up on him because when they signed him, I was like, oh my God, that's the craziest name I've ever seen. I need to watch him play. He looks great. You like what you see. You see the vision at central mid where he can make those late runs to the top of the box, kind of same thing we mentioned with Henderson or Michelina. If you're making that run to the top of the box and Augie Williams is occupying space around the penalty spot or 6-yard box, there's going to be a lot of space to make a late run, which is what he was really good at when you watch the video. Again, there are ways to see it work, but John, I think you nailed it. Margin of error, there is none for Hartford as it stands today.
I keep playing around with the lineup thing and it never makes any sense and it's really bugging me. Like I just don't understand. And that is partially my issue. When I can't wrap my head around a team, I naturally get pessimistic. And that's dumb because these guys are all smarter than I am.
I get it. I mean, I totally get it, though. I mean, we talked about it with, Rhode Island fans and Hartford fans. I'm about to compare you briefly with each other. I really do apologize. But it was the same thing of having Clay Holstad start at right wing back over and over again. Connor Smith is so much smarter than me, and he could give me an explanation. It would make sense, but I couldn't wrap my head around it. And the same thing is going with Hartford's lineup right now, where I can't make sense of it. But if Brandon Burke sat me down and said, this is why I'm doing this, I'm sure I'd sit there and say, oh, yeah, you're a super genius. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any final thoughts on Hartford?
It's more of an overall thought for the Eastern Conference, but 7 of our predicted 8 playoff teams that we've done as a show were in the playoffs last year, and the only team different was North Carolina, who is no longer in the league, and that was just adding in Tampa Bay.
Wow. All right. Any final thoughts here? Let's go on to our first team out. And that is my Birmingham Legion FC. They bring down Jay Heaps, the former coach, to be the CEO and the head coach. And for the first time really in club history, they've had a pretty hard reset. Is this midfield, is the shakeup in the midfield going to be enough to power this team forward?
I'd love for you to take the lead on this, Kaylor, because I will say I think the answer is yes, but you've seen these guys live. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I saw them last week take on Chattanooga Red Wolves, which we'll get to them next week, but I really like what I'm seeing out of the Red Wolves. I think quietly this might be the best Legion roster constructed. And I know people are going to see names on paper and not believe that, but I really do believe that this might be the best, most well-rounded roster. Do I think that means they're going to be competing with the top 4? No, I really don't. I think the top 4 is by themselves. But I think this team is absolutely going to be able to push for anywhere from that 5 to 8 range, no doubt. What we saw was Tyler Pasher playing the 10. The first time Legion has played with a 10 since Bruno Lapa, and even then Lapa was more of an 8, a box-to-box midfielder. We have Sam Sashua and we got Seth Antwi playing as the double pivot. And then over on the right side, they have the Arbian, who comes from Revs 2, playing that left-hand side where he's an inverted winger, cutting inside. For my Legion fans, he's like a left-sided Prosper Kasim. He's going to cut inside, kind of be another midfielder for you to have there, but he's going to cut inside, put some crosses. And then Seba Tregarthen, I mean, John, you've been all over him, and I love this guy. He's going to put I think he's going to put a lot of people on blast. I think he's that good. In goalkeeper, I think that you have Colliet, who I think is a massive upgrade on Delgado and Matt Van Oekel. I think my question marks are going to be with the wingback side of this with McCartney and Daly. Are they going to be able to get enough of those guys to really make a difference? McCartney, I believe in the talent, but his injury history that has not shown me he can play a full season. I'm really bullish on this team, but they are nowhere close to competing with this top four.
Yeah, and by all the Seth Antwi stock that you've got is probably my takeaway from the offseason so far. And there's a lot to like here, but he is the piece that really gives you balance through the midfield. We were down on the pivot last season. We talked a lot about the number 6 spot for this team. Antwi, based on what he did with St. Louis City 2, can come in and just be the problem solver immediately. He's good as a destroyer. He's good as a ball carrier. He can set the tempo. It's that little bit of everything that feels very additive, and it'll let Pasher have more freedom if he is playing centrally. It'll let Shashua do his thing as a creator. Like, that's the balance that this team really needed.
And one thing that is encouraging from our rankings was the fans had them within this very narrow group that you mentioned, Kaylor, of that kind of 6 to 10 range, that they could very well be finding themselves back into the playoff picture as well. I think one of the initial first goals for this season is that they should win back-to-back games in the league for the first time since June 2024 when Inside Out 2 was in theaters. But this team has at least done enough to revamp and overhaul the squad, with having brought Jay Heaps in, as well as that they could certainly find their luck go in their favor and be on the other side of the playoff line in this top 8.
I think for me, and I just kind of want to hear your guys' thoughts, because I can talk forever about this team, obviously. But if I am looking as an outsider, getting a completely unbiased look at this team, what is for you guys the front line where you're looking at a Saucedo / DRBN, you're looking at a Damas, and you're looking at a Tregarthen or a Pasher if he has to move out there? Is there enough goal scoring there to propel this team? Because Damas was kind of doing it all, but nobody else was.
I am high on the left-sided options especially, and I'm high on Tregarthen. Are they going to be up at the top of the goal-scoring table as a team? No. Will they be enough if this defense is good to hold up their bargain and get Birmingham to win some 2-1 score lines? To me, the answer is yes. And Damas, we can't understate, he is an all-USL number 9 in the Ray system. He should be a guy that is getting 12 to 15 goals if this team is competent. And everything rolls off of that, because then you have to double team him. Then the defense is constantly having him in the back of their minds. It just opens up space for everybody else to do their thing. The more I think about Birmingham, the more I think that is going to be the case. And Damas is going to get back to that dominant form. And you've got enough options on the wing that somebody's going to come good.
What about some final thoughts for this Birmingham team?
Do you think, and I'm posing a question to you again, do you think Kavita and Patterson are up to the task in the year 2026?
Okay, so this is actually something I wanted to ask you guys as well, because maybe I'm jaded. I love them both as players and as humans, but pace has not been their thing in a long time. I was stunned when Bryce Washington was not starting, because he offered some speed that this back line has not truly had since Alex Crognale left. I think I would drop Patterson for Washington, but also Patterson provides you so much on the ball that you don't want to lose him either. I think you're losing something if you drop either one. Kavita is probably going to be the captain this year. He's strong as an ox, super smart player, can organize the team in front of him. Patterson offers so much on the ball, can ping a good pass if you need. You don't really get that from Washington. But as I saw versus Chattanooga last week, any sort of speed in behind and it's one-on-one with the goalkeeper, good luck.
Okay, that's pretty much exactly where I'm at, where in the context of Patterson and Kavita's age, the way the East is going to play out this year, Washington just feels like the athletic profile you need. I wouldn't be shocked if Jay Heaps comes to that same conclusion sooner rather than later.
Also want to just throw someone in chat that says Domus offers nothing off the ball, which I could not disagree more, like at all. He's one of the more effective pressers I've seen in Birmingham, and his runs are really intelligent off the ball. The issue in Birmingham is that there was literally nobody else on the team running beside him, so he was making off the ball runs for literally no one. So I don't think that's a Domus issue. I think that was a Birmingham issue.
He is so good in transition, like not even with the ball at his feet, but understanding in the moment when you can break, when you can start to be that player that's either going to get the ball or going to drag defenders out and set up that secondary run. I think there are moments where he can be a little bit lackadaisical, but he knows when to turn it on at just the right time.
All right. Any thoughts before we move on? All right. Hey, back to back. If me and if me and Phil were tied to the hip, so are me and John. Indy 11 comes next. I do fear that there was a little bit of cynicalness from John that has rubbed off on me with Indy that has influenced the show ranking versus the fan ranking. But will Indy live and die by the hands of Blake and Quinn this year?
You look at the Indy roster, which from what I've heard from people close to the team has been a 4-4-2 throughout the preseason. And that is putting Quinn and Blake as these kind of wingers, but really tucked in number 10s. They're the only proper creative outlets you've got. Maybe Bruno Rendon will get a handful of goals as a counterattacker. I think Charlie Sharp is a great set piece option just because he's got almost 6'5" size. But by and large, Indy is going to be a team that wants to go long, be somewhat physical, somewhat slow. And then you're just getting Blake and Quinn the ball in these crowded spaces where, yes, they are skillful enough to break a defense down, get an assist or two, score some goals. To me, it doesn't feel sustainable. It's a different gloss on the same issues that we saw throughout 2025. And there's talent here, but not enough to get Indy over the hump compared to a lot of improved teams in the East.
And if you just look at Indy 11 from 2025, after the month of May, from June to the end of the year, there was not a single draw within that entire stretch of the latter half of the season. It was very much a kind of feast or famine type of performance that you would see from Indy 11. I will say they were one of 3 teams to get a victory over both Pittsburgh and Tulsa over the course of the year, alongside North Carolina and Colorado Springs as well. But yeah, John, just knowing your insight here and just kind of hearing some of the, I guess, pessimism around the team definitely influenced where I had ranked them as well. And it's roughly around this number 10 spot.
I just look at a team where Quinn and Blake are going to play really narrow, and you don't have fullbacks that are going to overlap. Like Matrano and Hayden White are the most defensively minded players you could have at those spots. Where does the width come from? Where does the balance come from? There's no destruction in the pivot. Like you're hoping Josh O'Brien can convert from center back into that spot, which really feels like a work in progress. Granted, they've got the trump card that is Eric Dick. That could just be the thing that lets Indy cook, and I'm not discounting that possibility. He's from the Indy area. I love the local connection of that. At the same time, I can just look at every line and have a nitpick or two that amounts to a bigger issue with 11's roster build.
Is the destroyer build that you're looking for possible from a Noble Okello, which you have kind of on the bench right now? Yes, he's 6'5", or do we just finally say, hey man, you are 6'5", go be a ball playing defender and put him as center back? Because they lose a Benefemu who was fantastic at that role, and they kind of lose that. Is that maybe the answer?
See, the thing about Okello is, yes, he is 6'5". He won 27% of his ground duels last year. Like, he is horrible in one-on-ones, and he doesn't actually know how to use his body. He just gets beat every time he tries to go for a normal challenge. Awesome in the air because he is tall. That's not the profile you need next to Cam Lindley. You need somebody that liberates Lindley to find touches, combine, flow, push up field. It's got to be O'Brien if it happens.
I'm just so fascinated. Again, John, I just think that your pessimism has just rubbed off on me, where going into the season, I was somewhat enjoying what I was seeing. I don't really love the center backs right now. I mean, Hogan, Herbert, Craig, Paco Craig on their own, I think I like, but I don't like them all together, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But also that I just don't know if that's just me being jaded by you being pessimistic.
It's just like a lot of known quantities where is Pat Hogan going to elevate you to the playoffs? I don't know about that. Same deal with Metrano. Maybe Rendon just pops off and we see him take the leap in his second year in the championship. And with Dick, with improvement in set piece situations and less mistakes out of the back line, that gets Indy to the playoffs. I think that's possible. Is this team going to finish top 6? I would be shocked.
I guess where I am looking, as I'm trying just to kind of look through, is what happens with Indy off the pitch, with the stadium stuff, with the MLS, won't they bringing in new people? I feel like that was kind of the story that really overshadowed Indy. Is that something that may be still lingering over the club a bit?
I think in the minds of the fans, absolutely. Like, that really has become something that drags down the energy around this team locally. In terms of the squad itself, no. Like, they are building to try to be as successful a USL team as they can be. But it's undeniable that some of the magic that was there in the early days of this club has been corporatized away in the pursuit of MLS and the stadium and the struggles with that.
Any final Indy 11 thoughts? All right. Let's go to the Miami FC, where the fans had them last, but we believe just slightly more than they do. They have names that you know and you like. You got Turnbridge, you got DaCosta, you got Jurgen Lacadias over there. They have Rocha you like. They got Knudsen, Rogers, Room, players, and you like the names, but is this core that they've brought in, the one they had from last year, good enough to compete?
I mean, the thing about Miami is that the core is different every year. Like, this is just the straight up third consecutive total rebuild that they've gone for. If you think about the spine now, it's Locadia, it's Eloy Room, who are going to miss some time for the World Cup, but that's a good problem to have. It's in the midfield, I guess, Bashir and Daye, like, welcome to the championship. You're doing your thing. Arthur Rogers feels like the best defender on this team by a mile, and I'm happy to see him in that spotlight. Those are guys across the board with this roster that I think we've looked at and admired at certain points in their career. Can they be the number one at their position for a playoff team? Maybe. Like, I think so with Rogers. Maybe Tommy Musto comes in from LAFC too and is just a dog and a great deep-lying initiator. There's something that feels the opposite of Indy here. They've got an energy about them. There's a sense that they're going to be fun to watch and pretty open in the way they play. There are also the Sonoras of the world, the Arnie Rochas, who have got a lot of potential coming in from South America. I don't know. Miami just feels like they've got the little bit of zhuzh that they lacked in seasons past.
I mean, from 2024, we know, we know what rock bottom can look like for this team. And they still went 14 games without a win throughout the entirety of last season. But it's a Miami team that like for the first time in a while, like avoided a last place finish in the Eastern Conference last year, that it's always really tough to kind of benchmark where we think this team will be entering the season. But just the existence of two yet to be named expansion teams still ahead, we just think that just Miami having that establishment is doing them some benefit.
I'm going to ask an unfair question, and it may be a stupid question, so go ahead, tell me. How differently would we feel about this team if Bonifilio was back?
I mean, that is a number 9 that will give you 14, 15 goals in a terrible team. I don't think we can confidently say that about Locadia right now. Yes, he was in the Premier League within recent memory, but he did nothing for FC Cincinnati, and he's been meh, kind of as this roving player across global lower leagues ever since. I think he's going to be good. Am I going to bet the farm on it? Probably not. So in that sense, Bonfiglio really is a big loss here.
I think when I am just kind of perusing, Turnbridge, I think, is going to be a really nice piece that I think is going to provide a lot of energy for this club. And I think I really enjoy a lot, and I think it's going to be fun seeing him for a season. Rogers, like you mentioned, is probably the best defender on this team, but we've done this song and dance when they were at NOCO where we kind of asked Eamon Zayed straight up, why did you play him at right center back when he's just like the best right back ever? And it was like, because he's also like the best defender ever. We don't need him to cross every single game, and that's like a weird thing to have with him. But there's places to dream on this squad, but I just don't find myself loving this team, I think, the way I maybe did even last year a little bit more.
I mean, you can look at the midfield line and the defensive line, and if you are being cynical, this is a League One unit. Like, Tommy Musto's straight on next pro. Angelo Calfo wasn't even good for Texoma, frankly, and I can't believe he got a jump to the championship. And Ndaye, good for Charlotte, but a League One player, and that holds for the rest of the back line. That's mean. That's probably not the level that they're actually going to play at. But in the worst case scenario, I think Miami could get exposed in the back half.
Can I put another Charlotte player on this team if we're going to go League One? I think I would feel so much better about this team if Omar Sis was on it.
Run it back, Sis and Ndaye in that midfield.
It was great there. Why wouldn't it work here?
Well, I mean, you think about what they do in covering the field, making really unselfish off-ball moves. It's designed to maximize a clever creator in the mode of a Luis Alvarez or a John Vaquero. You've got Tunbridge and Sonora and Rocha who are that kind of player, but there isn't the stability behind them because you don't have a Sis in that midfield. That feels like a shortcoming. And clearly Miami has more business to do. Like, this is an incomplete roster. There are going to be 4 or 5 more guys that come in. I'm just a little bit confused, as always, with what Miami is intending to do here.
Any final thoughts on them?
Why are there 2 games against Jacksonville this year on Wednesdays?
Let's go.
I love it.
This is USL heritage.
Why are there no away day fans going to Jacksonville, for the midweek game? Isn't it like an 8-hour drive? Isn't like Florida like ridiculously long from like end to end?
Sources are telling me.
Yeah.
We do still have a Nocerino derby with Miami and Las Vegas again, so we still have that going.
Break out the kit, Phil. Break out the kit. All right. Let's go on to Brooklyn. I'm not going to make a no sleep joke because that's been made a ton. But from the looks of it, it's a thin roster at the moment. As of recording, no right back exists. They do. They're just not officially announced. But this is a largely superstar-less team. Can LeBlanc elevate this team to superstar status?
There was a point in December where I just started hammering Philadelphia Union 2 tape and digging into their numbers. And I think Marlon LeBlanc has the goods on the sideline for Brooklyn. It'll be 4-4-2-ish most of the time, but high pressure, really compact defensively, lots of good movements with and without the ball. And it's the kind of system where you don't need the star to do it because it is the patterns and it is the way that you are turning opponents over and controlling the field. That said, that team mentality can only take you so far. The best case scenario, I think, is what we saw with Chattanooga last year, where they kind of faded at the end and didn't make the playoff run. If Brooklyn can go to that distance, which I don't think they'll do, that would be a remarkable achievement. But there are just a lot of question marks right now. I think we trust Obregon to be a striker that can do a job. I like Jackson Lee and Lucas Burns a lot in goal, and Gabriel Alves is someone you trust at left back. There isn't athleticism in the pivot. I think the center back pairing is like insanely bad. And the wingers are They're getting CJ only on loan, has been reported, coming in from the Philadelphia program, which will help. But I don't know. It doesn't feel like the talent is there to back up what are going to be some very strong ideas.
And you do have players here that you recognize, at least in and around the USL ranks, players who have had a lot of experience within just U.S. soccer in general. JC Obregon, Pierre De Silva, Van Seal, Jackson Lee, former Wilmington Hammerhead player Tommy McNamara, 3 games played. He is still within this side. But yeah, it's really interesting to see how they've kind of built this team to enter this year. And it's just like when you look at the rest of the Eastern Conference and how stacked that we've talked about some of these top teams are, expansion teams are very likely to struggle within just this conference on their own. And I will say, at least for Brooklyn, they are the championship team that is closest to a Taco Bell, so they do have that going for them. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this team approaches the year ahead.
Jackson Lee is in my room with Brooks Thompson of Let Them Cook. They are so good, please, for the love. I love that Jackson Lee is finally getting a chance to get a full season run at this, although I think Burns behind him is going to push the ever-living crap out of him because I also highly rate him. But if Lee's given the run, I think you're going to see that he was a starting goalkeeper that just happened to be behind Koke Vegas in Rhode Island. I think that's a good route for success, especially when you have a not ideal center back pairing in front of him with Latonovic and Van Zeal. Van Zeal is not the guy he was with the Loyal anymore or with Pittsburgh Riverhounds. He's just not that guy anymore. He was playing in the 4th tier of France, I believe, before Tampa Bay brought him back. It could be better, but I'm also looking at what you have, which can be a nice system with Alves, Maglione, Jadon Cervena. How can those 3 work together on that left-hand side? Maybe I'm a little bit more bullish on that than other people, but I like the idea of it. And I kind of put it out when I did the teaser stuff on socials. But Brooklyn kind of can do they're within like where there's unity, there's strength, which is like Brooklyn's motto. They can do that with this team. And I'm not saying I believe in it to make the playoffs, but I believe in it to be competent.
Yeah, and they've only got better in the midfield since you put this graphic up. Like, I like Taimeo Akiyoshi a lot in the center of the park. He is just good about passing the ball, good about taking up defensive positions. I know nothing about Abdoulaye Kanté, who's coming into the midfield, but if you're signing a dude straight from Saint Etienne in France, that probably means something in terms of the pedigree. They've got options in the middle. It's crazy to me that they haven't announced a right back yet. Like, get on that because you do need a player in that position. I don't know, maybe. But yeah, I don't know. Unless Obregon can repeat what he did in League One, I just have a tough time wrapping my head around Brooklyn.
Do we think that the midfield of McNamara and Maglione can be enough, again, not to propel them forward like we talked about with Legion, but be enough to at least make this team go and just kind of not fall apart? Mangione.
I
I
think
can call Maglione. Mangione. I'm so sorry.
I think the thing with LeBlanc ball is that you don't really need your center mids to be pushing ahead and being creative. Like they're the backstop that lets everything flow in front of them. And will Tommy McNamara step up at times and be creative? Certainly. But it's going to be swinging those passes to the wings, letting Servania, De Silva, potentially CJ Olney do their thing in one-on-one situations. And if you can get like combination play between Alves and Servania up the left, there are worse partnerships to have in the USL for sure.
Any other final thoughts?
I want them to be good. How about that?
I'm interested because they're playing what the Super League does with like Coney, right?
Yep.
I know it's a turf field, so they don't have to worry about like the field being destroyed and all that stuff. I totally understand that. But I'm interested to see how it turns out because when I watch the Super League play there, the atmosphere is great. It doesn't look good on TV. It's because it's a baseball field, but the atmosphere is always fun. If Brooklyn can get behind this team, I think it can turn into one of the more fun atmospheres in the league.
And
go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to mention the Prinks Cup. We have 3 New York City area teams in the same group, which will be a lot of fun. And then throw in Rhode Island and Portland Hearts of Pine and Hartford. Like that's a really fun, just kind of Northeast group for the Prinks Cup.
If I wanted to get to the stadium by train, it would be a full hour, 10 minutes.
I love that.
So dox me.
I also just think
visit the Taco Bell, please.
Yeah.
Away day to the Taco Bell. This is not the time for this conversation. However, remind me public transit when we get to the very end.
Okay.
All right. Last but not least, and probably not actually last after John has watched a little bit of preseason versus Charleston. Sporting Jacks. Our vote for the wooden spoon. The fans think second to last. The storyline here is, can these unproven talents at the next pro level make the jump? And can some of these older guys who've been in the championship re-find a little bit of flame?
Yeah, I mean, I'm mad at myself for submitting my ballot before I got to see Jacksonville play because I saw this system in action against Charleston and I see the vision all of a sudden. This Jacksonville team, and I mentioned the next pro players in the prompt, they are young, they are hungry, they are energetic. They want to play over the top and press you to regain in useful situations against a defense that isn't necessarily set up to succeed. And they've got the speed to do it. You think about Jacob Evans, who's really creative. Tyshawn Rose, really agile, great in one-on-ones at left back. It's a lot of USL guys, too. If you think about Ahmad El-Kak and Zeke Soto, kind of in that right central pocket within the midfield. There's just a lot of guys that are going to outgrind you and really put in the effort. That is a credit to Liam Fox for getting that energy immediately from this squad. It's not going to be the same as the Super League. That team came out and looks pretty every time you see them play. It is complicated possession patterns, doing things so attractively. Jacksonville is going to be a little bit more rough and tumble on the men's side, but I think that is a good approach for a team that's still getting their feet wet at the men's pro ranks. And yeah, suddenly I'm excited about what Jacksonville is bringing to the table.
And Jacksonville will be looking to join Rhode Island and at least North Carolina from 2024 as the first teams to have been quote-unquote expansion sides into the league that have also made the playoffs. We had Lexington just miss out on it last season by a single point, but they're going to be starting out the year with Hartford, Rhode Island, Miami, Pittsburgh, and Tampa Bay. So they get 2 derbies to at least open up the season. And it's going to be really interesting to see how this team kind of comes together, if there will be this kind of similarly like very exciting team to watch, if there will be involved in a lot of high scoring games that you're kind of been referring to, John. So yeah, I think I can definitely get behind, or at least get on board with the Sporting Jacks hype train, if you will, for more public transit.
I guess where I am with Jacksonville right now is I still think they missed the playoffs. I'm still in on them being competent. And I'm going to go back to what I said earlier. We said it all last year about there being no bad teams in the USL right now. They are going to be, I think them and Brooklyn are going to be the main losers in that sense right now. I think if this team came up in 2018, they're coasting into the playoffs. This is 2026, and the talent level has risen that much that I think that they're going to struggle a bit. I'm very interested on the goalkeeping spot between Oliveras and McGuire, where McGuire's been in this league for a long time. He knows the players, he knows the scouting. Do you prefer that in a number 2 where he can help out Oliveras and say, hey, this is what this team does, this is what that team does, this is what this striker does, this is what that midfielder does, like this is how they want to attack things? Or would you rather have that in game and have that veteran experience immediately? I don't know how Jacksonville wants to attack it, but either way, I like that setup for Jacksonville.
And Damian Loss is the specter that is haunting this podcast. It feels like kind of a Damian Loss situation where Oliveras is there because they're kind of guaranteeing he will get minutes in preparation for eventually stepping into a bigger role with St. Louis. Looked good against Charleston. And I think the benefit of him and McGuire is that they can be at least halfway decent at stepping out of their line and clearing danger outside of their box, because Jacksonville was playing a crazy high line against the Battery. And I don't know if that's just a tick of realizing Ben Pierman doesn't want to blast the long ball over you or what. I hope it's permanent because it'll make Jacksonville very fun.
And Kaylor, you had mentioned that Brooklyn and Jacksonville may be 2 of the losers kind of this realignment coming up into the championship. We do get 3 meetings between Brooklyn and Jacksonville throughout the season, so that's something to look forward to, or at least that's at least what FootMob has listed out as well. And I guess it was probably going to be a more interesting question before John had kind of convinced me here. But since we have Jacksonville as our Eastern Conference wooden spoon and Monterey Bay as our Western Conference one, the 2 teams do play each other on June 10th. But I guess looking at it now, are those our 2 wooden spoons, and who do you think will be the worst of the 2?
I mean, it's definitely Monterey Bay for my taste.
Yeah.
I don't want to jump back to Brooklyn, but I feel like Brooklyn has settled into last, I think, for all of us. I think that's a more interesting conversation between Brooklyn and Monterey Bay. But with Sporting Jacks, maybe this is, and John, you mentioned the Super League team where from out the gate they were just getting so many touches in the final third, like from the very first game. It was some ridiculous number in the final third that just was mind-blowing, and they just haven't stopped doing that. Maybe I have that a bit in my mind right now as I'm talking about Sporting Jacks, but this is going to be an exciting team. I really do believe that. I think that this team is going to be really exciting, and it's not going to be this, like you mentioned, free-flowing, like a billion touches in the box kind of team, but they're going to be aggressive. They're going to go forward. I think it's going to be fun, a fun team to watch.
And between Soto and Sadlier, like they're guys who, if they get the touch in the final third, they're going to beat you one-on-one, take a shot from distance, and just challenge you constantly. That's something you want to see from an expansion team, honestly.
Soto was a guy that I was really interested in. You talked to, I forget who you talked to. It was when you did the conversation with the battery and
Oh,
the young
Lee
talent.
Cohen. Yeah.
Yes. And Soto kind of came up, and he didn't quite join the lineage of some of their young guys to go on to do bigger, greater things. But that wasn't a slight at Soto, as he was still very wanted this offseason by both League One and championship teams, where maybe this is his level for another year or two, but maybe a new horizon in Sporting Jacks could find him rising up a little bit more than maybe he was able to in Charleston last year.
He is still 19 years old, all the potential in front of him. And I think he learned some valuable lessons with that time he spent in Greenville. I mean, often playing as a winger there, but he got some wingback minutes. He was asked to contribute in the press. And you could see the way that he had grown in that friendly. Essentially, on the ball, he kind of played as this 8-10 hybrid that was drifting between the lines and being creative. But they wanted him pushing up in the press, pressing next to the striker in a 4-4-2. And then as soon as the ball turned over, he was the outlet in transition. Could be a really big season for him.
Any final Sporting Jacks thoughts?
I'm happy that they're not going to be terrible, because I was afraid of it.
As we've done the championship and we've done the full conversation now, which if you are someone who has watched all these videos or you've listened to everything live, I've been pleasantly surprised by each team on paper, Sporting Jacks included.
Yeah. I think League One is going to be crazy with the difference of opinions we're bringing to the table.
Yes. Well, that is the Eastern Conference. We had an extra team to talk about because 13 teams, shout out to North Carolina dipping out. And so we had 13, and so it went a little longer this week. And do we have any final USL thoughts before we kind of go on to the end?
Nah.
Yeah, fair enough. All right. How about some final thoughts on the night, John?
I guess this is kind of USL-y, but shout out to friend of the show, Luke Martin, who talked to you, Kaylor, for the pieces he was writing. But I think if you want some on-the-ground perspective about Tormenta and why Tormenta mattered to the Statesboro community, go seek out everything he's been writing, because it's emotionally evocative stuff for sure and worth your time.
I cannot talk highly enough about Luke at all. It just one of the great bright spots that this league has to offer, and just read all the stuff. We quoted some of his stuff all the time. I mean, I know for me, the Ian Cameron quote from pressing pretty football doesn't work in this league, and yet he continued to do it every game. I think we quote that, at least I quote that every single week for about 3 months, and that came from Luke Martin. So it's great reporting going on down there from him. So one of the good people, go check that out for sure. Ryan?
Yeah, just echoing that you really have to feel for the Tormenta fan base. I know what it's like to go through and lose a team as well, and it's just really tough to kind of go through. So find just that, keep the community alive, and just still kind of reach out to those people as well, just to continue the fan base. And yes, Fuller, I've done the first 2 episodes of Paradise. I haven't done all 3 yet. I'm trying to.
I'm with you. I've done 2 now. Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, public transit.
Yes.
My wife and I were talking the other day. We were talking about there's a homeless center that she is volunteered at fairly frequently. And they were talking about how the city we live in, which is very close to Tuscaloosa, a major university, and we're minutes away from the campus. There is zero, absolute zero public transit. There is not a single bus that exists in this city. Not in Tuscaloosa, there are.
That's crazy.
But in this town that is less than 15 minutes from the campus, There is not a bus that runs. There is no public transit. That is insane. That is absolutely insane. And
The
again,
most
yeah.
American thing ever. Yeah.
Oh, I want to. Okay, I want to dox myself. It's fine. It's totally fine. Hopefully you won't figure out exactly where I live. I guess, but they're planning to build this like, I think the number was $250 million beach in the city. They're planning to make a beach with like residential housing. Which if it's like a beach it's definitely going to be rich people housing.
Yeah.
So they're planning a $250 million beach, but no public transit, not a bus. We have no bus. What a crazy world.
You love
I just want to
it.
hear. I just want to hear a really great YouTube channel for urbanism. I really want to hear what City Nerds like reaction to all of that would have been.
Probably the same thing as mine, which is like, what? What are we doing? Fine. Also, there was like smoke everywhere, like across both cities. I was in Tuscaloosa. I drove home, and there was just smoke everywhere, and I don't know what was on fire. Like, not a clue, but it was huge, whatever it was. So hopefully, it was nothing serious. And so if I like put a message out there, it's like my house is not here anymore. This is my warning to you all.
Let's hope that does not happen.
I would prefer it not to happen. Just a preference. All right. Well, listen, all these videos will be sliced up separately. They'll be posted onto the YouTube. The full podcast is going to be available to you. Obviously, if you're listening to this, thank you for making it all the way to the end. We appreciate you guys so much. We'll be back next week for League One preview, and then the season starts. But until then, it was great to see you all. Great to chat with you all. And for the first and final time tonight, here's Alan.
Thank you for watching another episode of the USL Show. The USL Show is now proudly part of the Protagonist Podcast family. Please go to protagonistsoccer.com to check out more work. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see everyone again next time.